for Grace's News.
Hello, Howard. Thank you so much for having me on your program. I'm going to start today with a headline that I think is going to make you happy. It's not the Oscars ratings. I heard you get to that right within the first few minutes of the show, down 58%, in case anyone missed it. This is a headline from the Boston Globe. Young people are politically engaged, pro-Biden, and depressed, study finds.
Well, I mean, any person, young or old, who's pro-Biden has plenty of reason to be depressed. Did you just hear that sound cut we just played?
Yeah, it's really, it's getting quite scary. And then I think what's even scarier, though, is when Jen Psaki gets asked real questions and she just doesn't want to answer any of them. But before I get to any of that sound, I want to talk a little bit about Biden going to Atlanta, because with the help of Joe Biden and his crazy rhetoric about Jim Crow and Jim Eagle and Jim Crow 2.0, Atlanta has really taken a hit. The All-Star game has moved out of Atlanta, and it's people there are really upset that they're losing all this revenue. But Biden's here to help. He is planning a rally in Atlanta despite supporting the players in MLB Georgia boycott. And it's a rally to commemorate his 100th day in office. I wanted to get your take on this, Howie. It's a drive-in car rally to highlight how he has delivered on his promises to the American people.
Wouldn't it be more appropriate to have the rally at the southern border, at one of the migrant detention centers?
Well,
maybe that hall in San Diego where 9% of the illegal alien children have tested positive for COVID, and they're getting in-person instruction while the schools remain largely closed in California.
Yeah, there is a lot of hypocrisy going on with the border, which actually, Howie, I know I played this earlier, but I think it's worth replaying for your audience here, is Peter Doocy got married this weekend. He's back in the press room, and he is not holding back. He asked Jen Psaki about a story that's out that reports that when migrant children come here, they get welcome bags. And in those welcome bags, allegedly, they're getting copies of Vice President Kamala Harris's book. So Grace, even though she's not at the border, she's giving them a copy of her book.
Grace, didn't the former mayor of Baltimore go to prison?
Yes.
For selling her own children's books?
Can we talk about that for a second? Because I was thinking the same exact thing. She wrote this book, and the sales were incredible.
Right. But she wrote it when she was president of the Senate, so she controlled the budget of the state. So anyone who was doing business with the state suddenly decided to buy 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 copies of these books, which were more like pamphlets just stapled together. And the grammar was atrocious, and there was no plot. And they weren't real books. It was a shakedown.
The books left something to be desired.
Yes. They, and again, this is not a totally a Democrat thing. I mean, when Mitt Romney was running for president, remember he engineered a deal so that his quote unquote book would be bought by all these groups that supported him, so it would skyrocket to the New York Times bestseller list, top of it. And so, I mean, everybody, Jim Wright, the former House Speaker, did it. Deval Patrick, the former governor of Massachusetts. This is how you make money. But I mean, this is kind of like, not feeding at the trough. This is licking the plate. If the government is buying these books and then giving them to illegal alien kids who can't probably read Spanish, let alone English.
Yeah, they're like, what are we supposed to do with these? But
can we eat these?
I do want to read one of the bylines here. I'm not the bylines, the headlines of this old story Howie's referring to. Ex-Baltimore mayor sentenced to 3 years in prison. Children's book scam.
Yeah.
Scam. Catherine Pugh resigned after federal authorities said she arranged for bulk sales of her Healthy Holly children's books to disguise hundreds of thousands of dollars in our favorite word, Howie.
Payoffs.
No, kickbacks.
Oh, gratuities.
Yes, I do remember that. So now that the story has come out about Kamala Harris, we're wondering, is this ethical? Will there be repercussions? And Peter Doocy had the gall to ask Jen Psaki this question, and her response is pretty funny because she does that tactic where she pretends she doesn't understand the question, like Mickey the Dunce. Oh, what? Huh? What do you mean? And then she finally does give some sort of answer. This is cut 6.
Every migrant child being brought to a shelter is being given a copy of her children's book, Superheroes Are Everywhere. Do you know why that is and if she's making any money off of that?
Of the president, of the vice president?
President's book, yeah.
I'd have to check with our Health and Human Services team if you're talking about if they go to shelters or if they go to...
Yeah, in the welcome kit, apparently, there's a copy of her 2019 children's book, Superheroes Are Everywhere.
I'd have to certainly check on that. Here, it's a good book.
I love how she pretends she doesn't understand what he's asking. Like, it's so complicated.
Did they have a choice between Mayor Pugh's book and Vice President Harris's book? I'd rather read the Holly Holy book. Healthy Holly Holy.
Howie, what about Andrew Cuomo? Why doesn't his book get to be included?
That's true. Now that you mentioned it, how about John Boehner's book? There's another scam that's
what about
going on.
Hunter Biden's book? They could learn a lot from that book.
Doesn't Dr. Jill has a children's book too,
I think she does. Children's books are great because you don't even have to sit down with a ghostwriter for hours at a time or days at a time. You just whip off a few outlines over the course of a weekend and somebody puts it into shape. Somebody 207 says, wasn't House Speaker Jim Wright toppled for the same thing? Yeah, he was basically forced out. I remember he was given a lot of the books were going. I think I've told this story before. A lot of the books were going to Boston University because the guy that was the president of BU, John Silber, was another guy from Texas, and so he got a lot of favors from Jim Wright when he was speaker. So he picked up a few thousand books, and then he couldn't do anything with them, so he started shipping them over to the Herald, to us, because we were kind of like allied with John Silber. And for a long time, Grace, in the old Herald factory newsroom in the South End, we had we used those cases of the books to open the doors, the fire doors, so that the breeze would come in the summertime. It was a very valuable tome in that sense. Kept the breeze flowing in the Herald newsroom for many years.
I mean, it's just insanity. And I think it really does show you the level of not just the lack of self-awareness, but they really think they're above any sort of criticism, because this is a really, really bold move to not only not be visiting the border, not be calling it a crisis, but then to be handing out your lame book titled Superheroes Are Everywhere. They might be everywhere, but they're not at the southern border. She's nowhere to be found. And she's in New Hampshire. And I heard this in your introduction, Howie, which is very good today, by the way. But I think we should play it again. Kamala Harris is asked about this. I want to give credit to the reporter, Adam Sexton. He asked about her.
WMUR, Channel 9. Yeah.
It's always the local reporters who ask real questions. And listen to what she had to say. Cut 15.
You're here to talk about infrastructure. Yes. Right now, Republicans are attacking you, saying you shouldn't be in New Hampshire talking about infrastructure. You should be in the southern border talking about immigration. How do you respond to that?
I'm not going to play political games. I'm here because the American Jobs Plan is going to bring.
By the way, did you see a new poll came out today? And Chris Sununu, the governor of New Hampshire, is 2 points ahead of Maggie Hassan. I think it's 48-46. I mean, it's, again, very early. It doesn't mean much, but it's pretty interesting.
But Howie, did you see the Chris Sununu story in Real Clear Politics?
What's that?
There's a story about how Biden isn't on any of these COVID calls with the governors. So the Trump administration did 40 calls, all right? And Trump was on 8 of them, and Vice President Mike Pence was on 39 out of the 40. Now, Joe Biden hasn't been on one of the calls, and Kamala Harris has been on one call. And the guys, one of the governors, I think it was North Dakota maybe, he said she was on one call for 5 minutes and she didn't take any questions. And Chris Sununu was quoted in the article basically saying, yeah, Joe Biden hasn't been on any of these. And you know who's heading up the phone calls every day?
Who?
Andrew Cuomo.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, he's in charge. By the way, guys.
Does he interrupt the call? Hey, honey, come up here. I'm having some trouble with my phone.
Come sing us.
Come on over here. Come on over here. Turn around when you're fixing my phone.
Everybody wants to hear you sing Danny Boy. Forget grocery store crowds. Choose from over 25 chef-created recipes every week with HelloFresh. You'll get a box on your doorstep filled with fresh, pre-portioned ingredients that in as little as 20 minutes will become delicious meals. Get 12 free meals, including free shipping, with code Howie12 at HelloFresh.com. Facebook.com/Howie12. Howie, I saw this story today in the Washington Examiner, and I thought it was really interesting. Black business owners at George Floyd Square are pleading for help as crime spikes and revenue plummets. Black-owned businesses surrounding the area where George Floyd was killed in Minneapolis last year say they are in desperate need of help from the police. The city left me in danger, the owner of Smoke in the Pit said Thursday, 2 days after Derek Chauvin was convicted of murder for Floyd's death. They locked us up on here and left us behind. Look around. Things are empty, said Richard Roberts, who works at a nearby church. What can we do about it?
Yeah, apparently that was a pretty prosperous section, and there were a ton of Black-owned businesses in the area. Now it's been totally destroyed by wokeness.
Yeah, and it's sad because I've talked to a lot of people who say the same thing, Howie, and who say, all these politicians, whether it's Maxine Waters or Al Sharpton, they go to these places and they spark all of these riots and this anger, and then they leave. They get on their private jets and they leave, and it's the Black-owned businesses that suffer the most because nobody comes back to help, and none of these media outlets like CNN cover it afterward. They just want to be there for the chaos.
Yeah. I mean, again, if you're looking for a book to read this summer and you don't want to read my book, any of my books, I recommend The Bonfire of the Vanities by Tom Wolfe. And it was his novel. And he's got the Al Sharpton character, Reverend Bacon. It's a perfect likeness of the book is more than 30 years old now, but there's also another guy they have in there. And, the guy that's being tried for the crime, you know what they call him, Grace? The
What?
Great White Defendant, like the Great White Whale. He's the Great White Defendant. And I think it was Larry Elder wrote a column last week, and he said Derek Chauvin has become, for the 21st century, the Great White Defendant. Someone that they can everybody can dump on and not have to worry about anything and any blowback whatsoever.
Howie, could I make a quick book suggestion for people this summer? It's a book. It's called Healthy Holly. It's by one of my favorite authors. Her name is Catherine Pugh.
What's her Bureau of Prisons number right now, Grace? Have you looked it up? I'll get it during the break.
You know what? It's not in her bio on the sleeve of the book. It's the weirdest thing. Howie,
it's not on Amazon either. You got to put her name in. You can't put her BOP number on.
All right, Howie. Thank you very much. I'll be back later for Hate Mail Monday.
All right. Hey, Grace, one more thing. Did you hear? I was looking at one of the radio blogs, and people seem to be liking your show. And somebody said that there are people, though, who don't like Grace. And can we begin calling them Graces?
Ooh, okay. I got to go on that blog. Every time I mention it, people start writing back in. But a lot of times they end up just talking about you, Howie. It's the weirdest thing. But
anyway, so that's we're going to call the people who attack Grace from now on, we're going to call them Graces.
There's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of them.
Not as many as there used to be, Grace. Not as many as there used to be.
That's true.
You're doing a good job. All right. Thank you. We'll see you later.
All right. Thanks, Howie.
Why buy gold? Are you watching what is happening in the world today? Global pandemic, U.S. debt piling up, spiking inflation, and the looming Biden tax plan. In the 2008 financial crisis, many Americans lost a large portion of their retirement savings. So what are you doing now to protect your money? Well, many turned to Goldco, the leading gold IRA company in the U.S. and four-time Inc. 500 winning company. With an A-plus rating from the Better Business Bureau and thousands of five-star customer reviews, you can trust the team at Goldco to help you protect and grow your wealth. Go to goldco.com/Howie Carr to request your free IRA guide that uncovers the secret that financial advisors won't tell you. So, what are you waiting for? Don't delay and fall victim to another stock market crash, inflation hike, or dollar decline. Visit goldco.com/Howie Carr to get your free IRA guide today. If you visit goldco.com/Howie Carr now, Goldco will give you up to $10,000 in free silver when you open a qualifying account. That's right, up to $10,000 in free silver. I'm Howie Carr.
When Howie's on, every radio is a magic radio.